Okay, everyone, welcome to the Carl Menger Institute for Market Economics. So, what is economics? There are many definitions of economics. A textbook mainstream definition would be economics is the science that studies scarcities, choices. Economics is about money and banking. But our approach at the Menger Institute, the Austrian approach, is that economics is a science, is an interdisciplinary science. Economics, Ludwig von Mises called economics social science, the queen of the social sciences. So the best way I would like to define economics is that economics is the science that studies or explores mankind's struggle for survival. Okay, so we would like to make economics an interdisciplinary and science. So why is it survival, right? So economics is the study of mankind's struggle for survival. Survival is innate. Okay, it is primordial. It is instinctual. It is primary, right? So, but why don't we just survive? Why is it a struggle to survive? Where is the struggle coming from, right? So the struggle is coming from because we operate in a world of scarcities. What is a scarcity? What is the most important scarcity? Time and space. We're mortal, our time is limited, right? If I'm in this location, at this place, I cannot be in another place. If I'm picking apples, I cannot be picking oranges. So scarcity is a world phenomena. So our science is a struggle for survival. Survival is innate in us. It is biological. It is organic. And it is a struggle because of the scarcities that we face in our world. So tracing the implications of human beings struggling to survive is the science of economics, okay? So economics is the science that explores the implications or the struggles of mankind's survival. So, what is the Menger program? What is our program? So I would like to spend a few minutes talking about the program. I would like to give you a preview of our program. Our story, our narrative at the Menger Institute is very simple. It's the story of the naked ape, or the naked Menger, let's call him, okay? So, the naked ape, where did I get this title, the naked ape? Professor Richard Dawkins from Oxford University is a biologist. He said that human beings are apes. The only difference, we're naked, because we don't have a fur, right? So we're naked, and obviously we differentiate ourselves with our cognitive capacity. We cognitively speciated about 50,000 years ago, anatomically about 200,000 years ago. So, our story at the Menger Institute is how the naked ape enters the marketplace, right, and struggles to survive. So, the naked ape is our story, and we're going to trace the evolution of the naked ape over the ages. So, very soon, quickly, our naked ape realizes that it is difficult to survive in autarky or in isolation. The naked ape quickly realizes that it is difficult to survive and operate in isolation, in autarky. So he decides to do what? Enter society, enter the marketplace, enter the state of nature, because he realizes that there are benefits from the division of labor, there are benefits from specialization and trade, okay? So the naked ape realizes that life is very difficult, brutal, short-lived, right? In order to survive, the naked ape realizes that he could enter society, specialize in the production of goods and the services that the naked ape has a comparative advantage, and trade. Next, fairly quickly, the naked ape realizes that once you specialize and you trade, in a barter economy, in a barter system, it is very inefficient. It's time-consuming, it's ineffective, it's difficult to find a match. Why it is ineffective, a barter economy? Because the double coincidence of wants. What is the double coincidence of wants? Imagine I'm the naked ape, I enter society, I specialize in the production of apples, and I want to exchange it for bananas. But it will be difficult for me to find someone in the village who has bananas and is looking for apples. So I have to find someone, I knock on the door in a village, I say, hi, I have apples, do you have bananas? The person may say, yes, I have bananas, but I don't want apples. The next neighbor would say, no, I don't have bananas, but I want the apples, right? So it's very difficult to find someone who has what you desire, and the person has what they, or you, and you have what they desire. We call this double coincidence of wants. To expedite, to facilitate exchange, the naked apes in the marketplace, via human action, via human exchange, discovered a medium of exchange. What is the medium of exchange? It's money. Historically, barley, coffee, wheat, tobacco, peacock feathers, right? All have been used as a medium of exchange. Eventually, human beings settled on metal money, gold and silver, as a medium of exchange to facilitate trade, to overcome the difficulties of a barter system. Well, once we have a medium of exchange, right, think about money, then there are many derivatives, many benefits from this medium of exchange. One such benefit is that we're able to derive the theory of the prices, or the price mechanism. What is the price mechanism? As Austrian economists, free market economists, we don't look at prices as an accounting measure. There is more information embedded in the price. If the price of a good goes up, then it might indicate that there is shortage in the marketplace. Production costs are going up. If price of coffee goes up, maybe production of coffee beans in Brazil is experiencing a drought, right? So there's information embedded in prices. We don't look at them as just accounting measure, but we look at changing prices teleologically. Why are they going up? What's the process of them going up? Then also with prices, we're able to we're able also to make economic calculations, which is impossible or very difficult in under a barter economy. Profits and losses, efficiency, right, are all measurable via prices. If I make price times quantity gives me my total revenue, okay? Wages, price of inputs multiplied by the prices of these inputs give me the total cost side of the production function, right? So costs and benefit analysis are only possible when we have prices for our goods and services. Prices are considered a price, or the price of money, right? Is considered to be the numeraire good. That means in a barter economy, oranges could be exchanged with respect to bananas, watermelon, at various different exchange rates, right? An orange would be worth 3 bananas, an orange would be worth 5 bottles of water, an orange would be worth, 1/1000th of a car, right? Or 1 million oranges would be worth an airplane, right? So each good and service will have an exchange ratio with all the other goods and services. Imagine how exchange and life would be difficult when every single good is expressed via all the other millions of goods and services and vice versa. Okay? So the numeraire good, then everything will be expressed with respect to the price of that numeraire good. For example, if barley was used historically in Mesopotamia as a medium of exchange, then certain units of barley will buy you an apple, certain units of barley will buy you a banana, certain units of barley will buy you a glass of orange juice, right? So barley would become the numeraire good with which all the other prices are expressed. So these are some of the benefits of the medium of exchange. Now, so the story goes that our naked ape enters society motivated by his own self-interest, right? To attain your goals, you decide to specialize. You can't produce all the goods and services that you consume. Life would be short-lived, difficult. So you enter society and you exchange the goods and the services. Okay, next, the naked ape discovers various institutions that facilitate a harmonious exchange, coexistent interaction in the marketplace, right? So some of these institutions are banking institutions. What do banking institutions do? They facilitate exchange in the money market, right? So once there is a medium of exchange, then we can save. In a barter economy, there is no such thing as saving, right? So in an economy when there is a medium of exchange, for example, gold and silver, they last a long time, they're transportable, they are divisible. So then the idea of savings arises. When there are savings, then there is economic progress. Then it's the beginning, so the savings, the mechanism of the savings and the theory of interest rate that arises from our savings marks the beginning of our civilization. Without savings, we can't build all the bridges and the highways and the airplanes that we consume today. It would be a very primitive society. So with the medium of exchange, we're able to realize savings. But where do we put our savings? What are the institutions that facilitate exchanges of our savings, debtor-creditor relationship? All of these are happening within banking institutions or what we call financial institutions. These institutions are market emergent. It wasn't by design, it was by necessity in the marketplace. People have the medium of exchange, so they deposited in money warehouses, we call them nowadays banking institutions, and then lending happens in these institutions. The Naked Apes also realized that they need to establish insurance or assurance institutions. What is the objective of these assurance institutions? Where assurance companies do what? They guarantee the quality, the efficacy of the goods and the services, right? Think about drugs. If you want to take a drug, you want to make sure that particular drug is effective, the efficacy of the drug, or the safety of the drug, right? So goods and services, when we're exchanging in the marketplace, we like to have some guarantees on it, okay? So in the marketplace, via exchange, via interactions, the Naked Apes discover assurance institutions. Furthermore, via exchange in the marketplace, the Naked Apes discovered insurance companies. What is an insurance company? It's pooling of risks. Imagine a long time ago, right, we're trading, Europe is trading with India and Indonesia, the spice trade. There is 4 of us, we have ships. Each ship is costing $1 million. What would happen if one of the ships sink or gets taken over by the pirates, right? So you lose your $1 million. So instead of losing $1 million, which will bankrupt the individual or the company, what we do is pool our risks. So the 4 of us would say each one would deposit in a fund, in a safety deposit box, $250,000. And if any of our ships are lost at sea, then we can draw on that $1 million and recover our losses. We can afford to deposit $250,000, but we won't be able to afford to lose $1 million, right? So the idea of insurance is a necessity. It's an institution. It's a company. It's a service that emerged in the marketplace via human beings exchanging goods and services to attain their goals. That's the objective. We are struggling to attain our goals, our objectives, our preferences, and on the top of the list was our survival. Okay. Furthermore, the Naked Apes also invented other institutions, jurisprudence, arbitration and mediation institutions or services, right? Why did we discover this arbitration and mediation services? To resolve conflict, right? So if we're exchanging apples and oranges, then there is a conflict. You promised me that you're going to give me the apples 3 months, so I give you the oranges today, I give you the money today with a promise, right? That you will, because human action takes place in time. And when action is taking place in times, then there exists what we call uncertainties and risks. Okay? Risk has a probability theory attached to it. Uncertainty is above and beyond probability. It's the unknown. Okay? Because human action is taking place in time, then there are uncertainties. So to mitigate for those uncertainties, we have assurance, insurance, and jurisprudence, arbitration and mediation services in case there is a dispute that arises. Furthermore, the Naked Apes discovered that they need security, right? They need security, they need protection, they will need an entity that enforces judgments of these arbitrators and mediators. Hence, security services were established in the marketplace. We're going to trace the history, the evolution of all these various institutions throughout our program. Okay? So all I would like to conclude with is that all these institutions are market emergent. They are all discovered via human actions, via human exchange, and via struggle. None of these institutions were established by fiat, or what we call by decree, by law. They were all established in the market economy. Now, to make observations these naked apes make throughout their evolution path, one such observation or discovery is the idea of democracy, is the idea of governance. Obviously, these naked apes enter the market, they create all these institutions, but they would like also to create governance mechanisms, right? All the institutions plus another institution, which we call it a governance or mechanisms, governance institutions. So, we observed, as Menger, as the naked Menger observes, that democracy is one of the most inefficient, ineffective ways of governance. We're going to come back, we're going to spend the whole pillar on talking on democracy. Why is it ineffective, inefficient? Because of bureaucratic management. Bureaucrats don't have a skin in the game. They want to preserve themselves. Their preferences don't align with our preferences, which we have subjective preferences, right? That will be only revealed at the moment of action. Our preferences cannot be revealed at the ballot box because we don't pay for it, right? You can go vote, right? You want fireworks, but when I say, please, Matthew, this is how much it's going to cost, pay me, then you might say, I don't want the fireworks, right? So we don't talk about the inefficient and ineffectiveness of the democracy. Democracy is also called what? Majority rule. Technically 51%, right, can rule over 49%. It's like a gang. Every day the 51% is another group, right? Someone from the 51% could join the other group. Now we have 51% in the other group. So our rights are being, over time, right, are being diminished, decreased. Rights are being taken away from us. The democracy and democratic governance leads to coercion. It's coercive, right? It's the tyranny of the majority. We experience what I call a loss of agency. I mean, we all believe, I mean, most of you would believe that we have the right, you have the right to your body, right? I mean, do you own yourself? That's the most fundamental freedom that we want, right? Forget property, apples and oranges and cars and houses. But do you own yourself? Some of you might say, yes, well, you're delusional. You don't own yourself. How can you own yourself if you cannot sell your kidney, for example, in the US? You cannot sell your organs. But what kind of ownership is that? How do you own yourself if you cannot prostitute your body? Well, what kind of ownership is that? How do you own yourself when you cannot sell your labor for the price that you desire? Can you sell your labor for $15 an hour to me? If I want to hire you for $15 an hour, you cannot say yes, because there are minimum wages at $18. So you cannot sell your labor. You don't have the freedom to sell your labor to me. Well, how does that make you owning yourself? You don't own yourself. It's an illusion that you own yourself. You can't sell your body. You can't sell your organs. You can't sell your labor. Okay? So it's a delusion. It's a fantasy world that we're living in, that under democracy somehow we have all this right. So it's a loss of agency because the majority rule, right, dominates, and that majority is ever changing. It's not the same majority dominating. It's always the majority. Today I'm in the minority, tomorrow I could be in the majority. Back and forth, back and forth. So when that happens, what happens? Helplessness kicks in. Alienation kicks in. You know, if there is a monarchy, and the monarch takes few of my rights away, or many of my rights away, at least I know where to target my anger. I would say, I don't like that monarch. I wish his brother was the monarch, or I wish he dies now. But in a democracy, I'm walking down the street, I'm in a park, there's thousands of people in the park, and I'm looking around, and I don't know who took my rights away. Who took my rights away to smoke a cigar and whiskey in the same location, right? In Los Angeles, you cannot serve alcohol and cigar in the same location. So I smoke cigars once in a while, right? And then right next to it, there is a wine shop. So a bar, right? So I take few puffs, go out, take few sips, come back and forth, okay? So I don't know who took that right away. It's simple rights, some of them are complicated, advanced rights, right? That would affect my livelihood. So alienation, helplessness is when you don't know who voted against you or who voted in favor of you, right? So that's where the alienation, the resentment, the bitterness that we exist in society today comes from the unknown of who's your enemy and who's your friend, who's restricting your freedom and who's helping you to get more freedom. With monarchies, at least you know, you target your anger and you're done. I don't like this monarch, and you go on living your life. But in a democracy, right, every person, family members, students in the classroom today, some of you may have voted for some policies that would affect me in a negative way. It leads to suicide. Professor Matthew Geiger will talk about how interventionism and statism leads to suicide. He published a book on that topic. He'll be lecturing us later on today in the afternoon. It leads to societal decay. That's what democracy does. So hopefully towards the end of the course, we will, one of the pillars is dedicated to what would be the alternative. So we'll talk about monarchy, its shortcomings. We talk about democracy, its shortcomings. We conclude that democracy is not necessarily an improvement on monarchies. They are myopic, they are, short-sighted, it is ineffective, it is inefficient. Instead of having one person's hand in your pocket taking money from you, you have thousands and millions of people's hands in your pocket taking money from you. Okay? So we're going to talk about democracy, and then finally we will present to you the alternative, which is a proprietary, polycentric, contractual society, and that's what we're looking for. So, second, another observation that these naked apes make is that the idea of natural rights. I mean, imagine these are the two most important pillars. Western civilization rests on the idea of democracy and natural rights. John Locke's natural rights, right? And we're going to find out democracy is not ineffective, inefficient, is not a good form of governance. Furthermore, we're also going to find out that the idea of natural rights is imaginary. As a matter of fact, more importantly, it is unnecessary to have any a priori rights, right? So it is unnecessary for the harmonious, proper functioning of a society. Right? As a matter of fact, these abstract, metaphysical rights, such as the natural rights, are actually hindrance for peaceful exchange in the marketplace. They're not only neutral and unnecessary, as a matter of fact, they have a negative effect. One question I would like to raise here is, when you talk about natural rights, what are these natural rights? The right to life, the right to liberty, the right to property, right? So you have rights. So where do you get these rights from? Well, I mean, it states, it says natural rights, natural. But where are you deriving them? Nature? Is that where natural rights are coming from? Well, if I observe nature, what do I see? I see conquests. I see the big fish eating the small fish. I see in the plant kingdom, I see the mahogany tree, right, covering more space in the jungles, taking up more of the sun rays, consuming more water underground, right, starving the other plants and the other smaller trees. Whether it's the animal kingdom, whether it's the plant kingdom, we always observe that there is no such thing as rights, okay? So, not only there are no natural rights, what we call them negative rights, obviously also there is no such thing as positive rights, right? When people claim that they have the right to food and education and healthcare, that's straight out confiscation, enslavement of other members of the society, right, for your own benefit. That is parasitism, Okay, it's a parasitic existence. So these natural rights actually dull the brain. It makes us kind of, lazy. It dulls the brain and it dulls our imagination to actually produce the institutions that will protect those rights. So instead of saying, I have the natural rights, claiming it, why don't you try to find the mechanism and institutions that lead to the protection of these rights, okay, such as assurance, insurance, private security, right? So all these institutions, market institutions, will provide the harmony, security, interdependence, right, interconnectedness in the marketplace. And all these market institutions emerged in the marketplace. So this is a preview of what we're going to see in this course, right? We're going to see human beings entering society. We're going to talk about the division of labor, specialization, trade. We're going to talk about the origin of the banking institutions. We're going to talk about insurance, assurance institutions, the evolution of these institutions over time. We're going to talk about jurisprudence, polycentric jurisprudence. We're going to talk about polycentric provision of security services. We're going to talk about governance, and we're going to conclude the course talking about philanthropy and ethics and morality. We economists stayed away for a long time from topics such as morality. Oh, that was economics is a neutral science in the sense that it deals with money and prices, demand and supply and equilibrium. But we're going to find out that economists, we are the best equipped. We're the best equipped to make, analyze, explore topics such as ethics and morality and philanthropy. Okay? Fortunately for us as Austrian economists, we're the only ones that actually talk about human nature, right? The state of nature. What does it mean to be human? Okay? I've taught economics for the past 20, 30 years. I've never seen a textbook, hundreds of textbooks I've evaluated. I've never seen Chapter 1 starting with what is human? What does it mean to be human? What are the characteristics? What are the essentialist or nomological evolutionary characteristics of human beings? Well, the social sciences investigate human beings. Don't we need a chapter at least dedicated to understanding what does it mean to be human? Well, they don't exist. Okay? They don't exist. So the foundations of our analysis is on understanding what it means to be human, human nature, operating in the state of nature, trying to attain goals and preferences. So, what is the starting point of our science? So, how do we start a science? What is the starting point? How do we proceed? How does our story proceed? Well, we're going to start from our first point we made today, previously, that a naked ape living in isolation decides to join society, or what we call the state of nature. So the story starts with the naked ape entering the state of nature. What does it mean, the state of nature? State of nature. Hobbes described, in the 17th century, described the state of nature as being what? The environment, a society, a marketplace where there are no governments, there is no centralized government, okay? So our story is the story of the naked ape realizing that in isolation, he or she is ineffective to produce all the goods and services that you would like to consume to survive, enters the state of nature, society, enters the marketplace. That marketplace originally has no institutions, there is no political governance, okay? What is the most important characteristic of this naked ape? When you enter the market, what is the starting point? The most fundamental, primary starting point. What do? You act. That's why we call human action our starting point in the science of economics. You enter society, you act. You cannot not act because attempting not to act is an action itself. It is innate for us to act. We are pre-wired to act. Okay, we cannot not act. When we act, We don't just wake up in the morning, run in any direction. We act with a purpose. Where is this purposeness coming from? Why do we act with a purpose? Because we're biological, we're organic, we live in a world of scarcity. So in order to survive, we need energies of life. That's why our action is purposeful. You just don't act for the sake of acting. We act with a purpose. We're volitional, we're thinking, right? We speciated 50,000 years ago. We have a cognitive capacity. We want to survive. Animals may act on instinct. Okay? Maybe we have some instinctual action, but most of our daily actions are purposeful. We don't just go in any direction. We have a purpose. When we have purpose, that means we have choices, right? You can come to the classroom, you can go to the movies, you can go to the beach, you can go to a dancing, you can consume apples or oranges. We're making choices. As long as you're making choices, right, that's an action in and itself. So economics is the science that traces the implications of human action. That's the title of Ludwig von Mises's book called Human Action in 1881. 1881, Human Action. So, let's talk about some of the characteristics of human action. So that when the naked ape enters the state of nature, right, the jungle, call it the jungle, he acts. He acts, action is innate, as I have discussed. It is biological, it is intrinsic. We are pre-wired to act, we cannot not act. If you try to deny the axiom of action, you end up verifying it. Okay, if you say I'm not acting, it's a verification that you're acting, because talking, thinking, okay, action is not just physical action, but it could be a mental action. So human action is axiomatic. What does it mean, axiomatic? It is true any place, any time. It's like tautological, right? It's like the Pythagorean theorem, right? True in space, in time, right? So human action is axiomatic. It is a basic assumption from which we're able to deduce all other economic theorems, the law of demand, the law of supply, the law of diminishing marginal utility, the law of diminishing returns to scale, right? The theory of the interest rate, price mechanism, all of these theorems, the whole spectrum of economic theorems are deductions of the axiom of action, okay? And the axiom doesn't require further justification, okay? Because if you try to deny it, you end up verifying it. The second characteristic of human action, it is purposeful. We human beings act with a purpose. Our purpose is always directed towards our struggle for survival. Furthermore, we can say that every action is, every preference is subjective to the individual, okay? As economists, we don't specify, we don't analyze your preferences, whether you like climbing Mount Everest, or going deep down into the Mariana Trenches, or self-immolation, or self-sacrifice, or altruism. We don't evaluate your subjective preferences. Economics is the science that investigates that once you pick a goal, guided by your human nature, what are the steps that you take to attain those goals in the most effective, efficient way, given the scarcities in the state of nature. That's the science of economics. So our action is not random, but it is targeted, and every action leads to subjective preferences. Another characteristics of human action is that only human beings act. What does it mean, only human beings act? Okay? It means that society doesn't have agency, right? You cannot say France attacked Germany. It just doesn't make sense. France cannot think. You can say soldiers individually think, they congregate, then we have aggregates, they attack Germany, that's fine. But the action itself is only determined by individuals. Only individuals act. Collectives don't act. Individuals in the collective act, but it's individual action It's not a collective action, okay? This distinction is very important, right? For example, at my previous institution where I used to teach, there is a department called the Department of Critical Theory and Social Justice. And I always wondered, why are we socializing justice? And why are we socializing justice? Preferences are unique. Different people would seek different justice. If somebody walks in and punches each one of us, some of us may retaliate, some of us may turn the other cheek, some of us may seek monetary compensation, right? Different people have different preferences. They seek justice in different ways. Okay? So why are we socializing? Why are we aggregating justice and claim that there is such a thing as social justice? Unfortunately, we're in a world of aggregation. Think about the macroeconomics. I teach macroeconomics. I have 2 part-time jobs. I teach at UCLA course on macroeconomics, and I teach Long Beach City College macroeconomics. And in the first lecture I say there's no such thing as macroeconomics. It just doesn't exist. It's made up. It's not economics. What is macro? It should be delegated to the Department of Political Science, or better yet, bureaucratic Department of Bureaucratic Studies. Economics has nothing to do with macro variables. Economics is the science of individual human beings acting in the marketplace, congregating, coming together via the division of labor, exchanging, becoming interdependent, interconnected. That leads to prosperity, right? But economics is not the science of aggregates, that's statism. That's why the science of economics dates back to since the beginning of civilization, when individuals started using their means of production in a world of scarcity to produce more goods and services. But macroeconomics is relatively a 20th century invention by statism, okay? Because it is evil, the idea that you can add up, aggregate individual preferences and come up with an equation, a formula, right? Mathematical modeling. Economics is not the science of mathematics. Economics is a deductive science, not an inductive science. So we'll talk more about deduction and induction. So economics is not the study of aggregates. It does not study society per se, but it studies how individuals would congregate together, right, exchange, creating what we call a market society. Not a political society, but a market society. Society does not feel pain. Can you say France is crying? Italy is happy, right? Agency, happiness, love, pain, God, nature endowed only to individuals. So individuals feel pain and happiness and sorrow. Society doesn't have those characteristics, okay? Therefore, we cannot say society is acting. And we say that only human action only pertains to individual human beings, okay? So this is going to be very important throughout the lecture to remember that only human beings act and society does not act. Another characteristic is trade-offs. We make trade-offs all the time. We make choices. What you give up to get something, in economics we call it the opportunity cost. Okay? So always think, so from human action we realize that we should always think in terms of alternatives. What are the alternatives of every action? Sweatshops. You know what sweatshops are? No? It's a place where you sweat. It's called sweatshop. It's a place, for example, in Bangladesh, Nike utilizes sweatshops. What do sweatshops do? They hire workers underage. People sweat. There's no air conditioning. There are no breaks. It's unsafe, unhealthy conditions. Sweatshops. Wages are very low. You get paid $1 a day. So, if I raise the question, are sweatshops good or bad? What would be your answer?
Bad.
Bad? Why bad? You're not thinking as an economist. Why sweatshops are bad? What's the alternative? As a matter of fact, Friedman from the New York Times went to Bangladesh. And he went and he saw there's a long queue at the sweatshops. And he asked the people, the workers, what are you doing? They said, oh, we want to sign up. Because he realized that the alternative is worse. So as an economist, you cannot say something is good or bad in a vacuum, in an isolation. Everything is relative. What's the alternative? Bad to whom? Actually, it turns out that's the best thing. And the conclusion of the article, you can find it. New York Times, Friedman, I think it's David Friedman, he has an article in the 80s, right? Or, sorry, not the 80s, maybe 80s or 90s actually. In the 90s, right? The conclusion of the article, the only problem with the sweatshop is what? That we don't have enough of them. They were begging the workers to have sweatshops because the alternative was working outside, garbage, landfills, collecting garbage or cardboards, etc. It was so as an economist, you have to think in terms of alternatives, in terms of trade-offs. Don't say something was good or bad in an isolation, okay? Economics is not an emotivist science. We're not using our emotions, we're using our rational, deductive reasoning, okay, to make conclusions. I mentioned this, that human action takes place in time. Human action takes place in time. Anything that plays in time, then in that action, action is attaining expectations. Okay? You want to get to your goal, but it's an expected goal. It's expectations. We expect, right, to exchange the goods and the services that we're producing today. Because action takes place in time, and any action, and because the future is unknown, no one knows the future, no one knows the next second. Therefore, we operate in a world of risk and uncertainty. Do you know the difference between risk and uncertainty? Risk and uncertainty. Risk has a probability distribution. Like the roulette, let's say there is no zeros, it's 1 out of 33, so it's 1 over 33 chance, then that you hit the number that you picked. That's risk, so it's calculable. You can calculate your risk. This is percentages of winning and losing. Uncertainty is above and beyond. It includes, but it surpasses risk. It's the unknown. There is no probability distribution to uncertainties. And unfortunately, we live in a world of uncertainties. Okay, not just risk, because we can mitigate risk. We can insure our risks. But life is not like that. Life is above and beyond risk. Life is about uncertainties that surpass the idea of risk. Otherwise, we can calculate, right? Otherwise, life would be at a steady state. Life would be in an equilibrium. But we're not in an equilibrium. There is no steady state in life. There's always uncertainties, or what we call the black swan, right? Human action, we're going to find out. Some of them are claims I'm making, but just be patient. Throughout the course, we're going to establish the foundations of these claims. Human action, the actions of millions of people interacting in the marketplace, exchanging with one another, leads to what Frederick Hayek called spontaneous order, or what I would like to call incremental order, right? Order is being incrementally established in the marketplace. But you might ask, Professor, if human beings are self-interested, they're selfish, they're pursuing their own goals and ends and preferences, how does it lead to harmonious social order, right? And that's what Adam Smith calls it, that your own, or claims that your own self-interest, human beings acting out of their own self-interest, it leads to what? To the betterment of society as if guided by an invisible hand. The objective of the Menger Institute of Discourse is to do what? To peel, it's like an onion, the invisible hand. And we're going to take it and explore the invisible hand. What did Adam Smith mean when he said the invisible hand? What is the invisible hand? We're going to discover the invisible hand that Adam Smith is talking about are these market institutions, the benefits of the division of labor, the depth of the division of labor, the price mechanism, the debtor-creditor relationships, banking institutions, jurisprudence institutions, polycentric proprietary contractual governance, all these market institutions and variables that emerge in the marketplace is the invisible hand that's creating order and harmony in the market economy. So economics is the science that explores how harmony and peace and prosperity emerges in the marketplace. Okay? So your self-interest, it's counterintuitive. It's your self-interest leads to harmony, peace, and prosperity. I couldn't say this pre-industrial revolution. I cannot go back in the 15th, 14th, 13th century and say, you know, peaceful cooperation will emerge in the marketplace. I couldn't say it because the division of labor was very shallow. Mostly farmers, agrarian. So I'm looking, you're doing the same thing. You're a farmer, I'm a farmer, we're producing apples, I'm producing apples. There's no benefit from the division of labor. So conquest was the norm. Naturally, I just want to come and take over your land. But post-industrial revolution, the division of labor is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So each human being has a place. You have a significant role, a primary role in the proper functioning of society. Each individual plays a primary role. You're a link in a chain that produces harmony. You're one of the links. If you get broken, the chain will get broken. And we'll be in dystopia. Okay? So the division of labor is what makes us interdependent. 100, 200 years ago, doctor was a doctor. Today, we have an ophthalmologist. We have a gynecologist. So within the division of labor, there are within industries, within jobs, there are deeper and deeper divisions of labor. Later on, I'll show you some numbers that I've calculated myself, the depth of the division of labor over time. Okay? How deeper and deeper the division of labor is going. So we'll talk about, so that's the division of labor. It's what binds us together. I need you. Right? What benefit is it for me to come take over your house and your car? That's meiotic, short-lived. Now what happens the next day? I have toothache and you are my dentist and you're gone, right? So what happens is that we are all become interdependent. The more, the deeper and deeper the division of labor gets. That's why we're going to spend a whole pillar, right? Next pillar and the following pillar. We have a pillar dedicated to the division of labor, specialization, and trade. From all these above characteristics, what emerges is that human action is selfish, is self-interested. Don't let anyone fool you say, oh, I'm not selfish. They're either lying or they don't know what they're saying. Okay? They're just being emotivist. Every action must be gainful. When you have a choice and you're picking choice A over choice B, because you have a preference choice B. Now choice B could be self-sacrifice. Could be giving out all your money to the poor and the needy and the unfortunate members of the society. But still it's a choice that you made. So every time you pick, because we operate in a world of scarcity, then that choice is self-interested. It benefits you, it's gainful to you, otherwise you wouldn't pick it as human beings. It's anti-nature, anti-human to claim that you're not selfish. Now some of you might argue back, some of you might say, well, I want to help the poor. I dedicate my life, I see an unfortunate member of the society and I provide charity. I make charitable contributions. Well, my reply to you would be what? Well, even in that charitable contribution, you are self-interested. Because biologically, we get what we call, as free market economists, you get a warm glow. What is a warm glow? It's a tingling of the body. It's like your body releases endorphins. It's biological. It's like a happy pill, happy, right? Makes you happy. Brings a smile. Well, that's the price. You go watch a movie, you're happy. You listen to the music, it brings you some level of satisfaction. Well, helping a poor person also brings you an internal happiness. It's biological. Your body actually releases endorphins. Okay, you get in a state of happy. And if you see someone who's drowning and needs help and you don't have to help that person, your body starts doing what? Your heart starts palpitating. you get shortness of breath, you get anxiety because your body is releasing what we call cortisol. It's biological. So in order not to get the cortisol, not to get shortness of breath and anxiety and a palpitating heart, right? In order to get endorphins, happy feelings, tingling of the heart and the body, right? That's why you help your members, other members of society. Maybe some people do it for fame, you know. So, but so every action is self-interest, but self-interest within self-interest, there is selfishness and there is altruism. Okay? So altruism is not a category on its own, it's a subset of what we call self-interest. As a matter of fact, Richard Dawkins from Oxford University said, we can trace your self-interest to the self-interest of the genes, the selfishness of the genes who are struggling for survival, who are struggling for homeostatic stability, equilibrium. Okay, within your body, they're struggling to exist. There is competition going on. They want to exist. They want to survive, and that's gene survival instincts, right? Manifests in human beings, in our survival in the marketplace. Sociologist Graham, he said this self-interest is primordial and it's everywhere and at any time. It's not a class, it's not a group or certain places, but it is universal across all individuals, all cultures, and across time. So, just to conclude, economics is the science of acting man, human beings, acting with one another, entering the state of nature, the marketplace, specializing based on differences in their comparative advantage. What is a comparative advantage? It's the production of goods and services in which you have an advantage, a relative advantage over the production of other goods, right? So you are relatively more productive than the production of other goods and other services. We specialize, we exchange, we produce all the institutions, banking institutions, we discover a medium of exchange, we produce institutions of assurance companies, insurance companies, property registry entities, right? Market type of governance, a proprietary, contractual, polycentric governance. So we create all these institutions with the objective that all these institutions and exchanges and specialization leads to what? A more efficient way to attain our goals. So the human beings, we enter society motivated by our self-interest to attain goals. And I would like to conclude with one statement that just came to my mind is a very popular president, right? President John F. Kennedy, a political president, he got assassinated, he died, but he has a quote. I was teaching at Long Beach City College and behind the classroom there was his picture and the quote. So I made all the students turn back and read the quote. The quote says, don't ask what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do to your country. So don't ask how my country can benefit me, but ask how I can benefit the country. It always struck me as an absurd quote because it was unnatural. And now I'm in the social sciences, I moved on from mainstream economics. I'm an Austrian economist, free market economist. We're going to talk about anarchism, how decentralized social order exists. And I realize how stupid and unnatural and anti-nature that quote was. Do you actually wake up in the morning and say, what can I do today to benefit society? I mean, who wakes up thinking in the morning, what can I do to benefit? In the morning when you wake up, you're thinking, how can I get my food and energies of life? How can I get some leisure time, family time? How can I produce some value so I can get compensation and I can consume apples and oranges? Really, who wakes up in the morning thinking, what can I do for my country? The most human expression is JF Kennedy's expression, don't ask what. The reason I enter society, the naked ape, from isolation, from autarky, enters society because it benefits him. I'm not in the classroom to benefit you. I don't know you, right? I never met you before. I mean, we might become friends by the end of the course. I'm in the classroom to benefit me. The baker doesn't go to the bakery in the morning at 4 a.m. bake bread because he wants to benefit society. He's thinking, how can I get compensation so I can buy a steak at night and have dinner, okay? So that quote came to me about the self-interest. So you enter society to benefit yourself, not to benefit society. But the beauty of the science of economics is that we will discover in that process, guided by an invisible hand, you end up benefiting everyone in society. That's the science of economics. So thank you very much. We're going to take a break, maybe 10 minutes break, and then we come back. We're going to talk about the state of nature and human nature, and then we continue the program. So I'm going to stop here. Thank you.